All right, everyone. Welcome to this virtual candlelight vigil hosted by Reimagine. It's such a treat to welcome you to this space, especially against the backdrop of this gorgeous music that we were just experiencing from my dear friend and we'll introduce him later, but Reimagine board member Jonathan Lips, who makes me not want to start the vigil with those gorgeous sounds. Thank you for being here. Would love it if everyone, if you're familiar, would turn to the chat and just say something you're grateful for and where you're calling in from or dialing in from this evening, just so we get a sense of the whereabouts of the people that have shown up in this virtual space to experience this monthly opportunity that Reimagine hosts to delve into loss and to love and to life and to really hold space in this monthly cadence for all that we've lost over the last month or whatever you're holding. This is a space to be with it in community and to maybe release it into the world. We can share and be together and support one another through that, and also think about all that we have to be grateful for and hold on to. My name is Brad Wolf, and I'm the executive director of Reimagine. We are a nonprofit organization that's focused on helping people face loss, face adversity, face our mortality, and also to work with it, those parts of life, to integrate them in healthy and hopefully expansive ways. So we might actually not just heal ourselves, but also heal the world in the process, because we believe that through certain types of expression of action and word, even if that action is doing nothing and taking care of oneself, all that type of being present, and then these positive externalized actions we can take together by being in community or on our own accord. Those things can shift ourselves and our own lives in positive ways, and they can shift the world in powerful ways simultaneously, and that's healing. And so we want to just create that safe space here this evening to process all those things. And doing this month over month, we honor all that's been lost. And I think today, I was sharing before the call that my dear aunt of mine passed away just today. So I'm here with a heavy heart. And in the context of what's happened this last month, thinking of the shootings that we're experiencing, the different levels of violence out in the world, our personal losses, the pandemic that we're still a part of. There's so much to grieve and to mourn, and it comes at us fast and furious. And so just grateful to be here with you in this space, to be with all of it, but really to be with each other. Before we go much further, I wanted to take a minute just to introduce those of you who need some support thinking about Zoom and the technology that is making this possible for all of us to be here in a virtual world. I want to point out the closed captioning first of all. If you push that live transcript button, maybe the audio is hard for you to pick up, but visually you'll be able to see the words strewn across the screen. So try that live transcript button. For any questions you might have, please use that chat button that I see so many of you are already using. Thank you so much for introducing yourselves and for saying hi, and for folks from Illinois, Jean and Donna, thank you for your condolences so much. And Jeannie, it's so great to see you, with gratitude from New York City. And Kay, Sweetness, what a name. So use the chat there for saying hello. Also, to share gratitude with the speakers that you're going to meet this evening and the performers. And then later on, we're going to be holding an honor ceremony where we're going to be lighting a candle in honor of the people or the things in our lives that we want to bring forth into this space. So now, in that regard, would be a great time, if you don't have one handy, to grab a candle if that suits you. And you can come back here in a minute and we'll be just getting started. So grab a candle. Also, if you don't mind turning on your camera, if you're able, it's so nice in these spaces. We're all busy, so I understand if you have to do other things. But if you're here present with us and you're willing and able to turn on your camera so we can look into the souls through the computer lens, I think it does really humanize the space. And so that's really, really nice in this virtual context. And then finally, we have a mute button that's going to be on for you for most of the time, except for the end of this vigil, at which point we may have an opportunity to ask some questions of the wonderful speakers and co-hosts of the vigil. So you'll be able to unmute then and join in conversation with us if you have something that comes up for you. But again, if anything comes up, put it in the chat too, and maybe we can address the questions you may have there. So with that in mind, just want to share the agenda for the evening, for how we're going to progress through this wonderful vigil space that's going to last another 80 minutes. These are 90-minute vigils, and they begin with music. And thanks again to Jonathan Lips, who's going to be gracing us with his presence throughout the proceeding this evening, with that gorgeous acoustic guitar and also some vocals we'll hear later. Dara Cosberg, our colleague. Dara, thank you so much for the gorgeous altar that we're going to be witnessing time and again throughout the ceremony, that holds the space and grounds us in a present way. And again, I'm Brad, Reimagine's executive director, and just so grateful to be here with you. We're about to start the ceremony, where we're going to do a candle lighting all together. So not just a candle you need, but also, of course, some way to light it. And then we're going to be hosting a wonderful conversation between Dante Stewart and Reverend Dr. Emma Jordan Simpson. This experience today that we're hosting here, there's a theme that is associated with this vigil. And the theme is from suffering into spirituality. And at Reimagine, we think about this idea of having growth pathways for ourselves. This is a month-long theme that we're hosting for Reimagine, where there's going to be a series of 3 events and this is the first kickoff to that series. And we want to introduce everyone to the idea that there are different pathways for us to move forward through our pain, through our loss, that actually might bring us to new spaces. And sometimes loss, grief, pain, suffering, these things might be portals actually to our own spiritual growth in whatever way that means for you. And we're going to explore that in different ways. What does that spiritual growth look like? Different ways to think about that concept, whether you are a Christian or a Jewish or Muslim or any faith or no faith at all. Everyone is welcome here in this space this evening. And I want to just say that we are a non-denominational, really a secular organization, but we hold space for all religions within Reimagine and believe that these conversations around mortality are some of the biggest, widest conversations we can have, and they deserve a wide tent in this space. So we're grateful to have Dante and Emma really guide us this evening in that conversation. Then we're going to have an honor ceremony with Mengda, and I can't wait to introduce Mengda. And then she'll help us proceed into that candle lighting ceremony where there'll be more music from Jonathan, and finally a candle extinguishing prayer, and then we'll wrap it up with maybe some questions and a goodbye and a nice closing for everybody, and we'll see what that part brings. So with that in mind, let us now grab our candles, and why don't we take a second and light them. And if you don't have a candle, that's okay too. Okay, and I would love to invite 3 of my colleagues without whom not only this event, but Reimagine and all these incredible experiences that we offer, hundreds and hundreds of free programs for you to participate in that address lost life and love on a regular basis, and resources. None of this would be possible without Dara, Zubin, and Misha, who are going to join me today in sharing this candlelighting blessing. And in doing so, they're going to each read this one time out loud. I would invite you, wherever you are, to join along, and if it moves you to literally verbally, even though we won't be able to hear you, we'll feel your presence speaking these words through the Zoom portal here this evening. So Dara, take it away.
By lighting our candles, we honor our personal dead, the dead across the world, and all of us still here together.
By lighting our candles, we honor our personal dead, dead across the world, and all of us still here together.
By lighting our candles, we honor our personal dead, the dead across the world, and all of us still here together.
Thank you. Thank you so much. And now I'm going to stop the screen share momentarily for an opportunity, if you have your candle, just and it's lit, just to hold it up to the screen for a second. We can see if you have a candle lit out there. And if you don't mind, it's such a joy that I've found in these spaces just to find somebody out there in Zoom and amidst this checkerboard and lock eyes with that person and just share a positive intention in your heart with that person. And we'll just hold space for that for about 15 seconds or so. Okay, thank you so much, everyone. It was so nice to be with you and to see you and to be seen. It is my distinct pleasure now to welcome our 2 Vigil co-leads this evening, who are going to be in a deep conversation, maybe a light conversation. I don't know what kind of conversation it's going to be, but just so grateful for it to take place between the Reverend Dr. Emma Jordan Simpson I'll introduce you first. Since 2021, the Reverend Dr. Emma Jordan Simpson has served as president of Auburn Seminary. Auburn is a leadership development and research institute that equips bold and resilient leaders of faith and moral courage to build communities, bridge divides, pursue justice, and heal the world. So you can see those themes are so closely related to really the purpose of us being here this evening. Both Reverend Emma and Auburn have collaborated with Reimagine many past events. Emma preached her first sermon at the age of 17. She and her husband live in Brooklyn and are proud parents of 3 amazing adult children. And we're so grateful to have you here to help guide us. And now I would love to introduce Dante Stewart. Dante is an award-winning writer, ordained minister, and author of the debut memoir, Shouting It in the Fire, an American Epistle. Last year, the Georgia Writers Association named him Georgia Writer of the Year. The Center for American Progress called him as one of 22 faith leaders to watch in 2022. His work has appeared in The Atlantic, The New York Times, The Washington Post, Time, NPR, CNN, MSNBC, and many more. We are excited to have Dante and Emma with us to kick off our April series, which, as I mentioned, is about transformation of suffering into spiritual growth. And at the end of the program, Andy will share a little bit more about how this event will dovetail into other events on the similar theme. But with that in mind, welcome you two, and I'm going to hand it over to you and get out of the way, and just grateful to be in your presence.
Thank you, Andy and Brad and everyone. Just thank you for creating this space, and it is a delight to be here. This is personal for me also. It's not just with my work with Auburn, but I also found this space. I find this space to be a very special place of healing for me. So I'm grateful. And I get tonight to have a conversation with Dante Stewart.
Indeed. I'm so grateful to be with you, Dr.
I'm going to try not to giggle so much, but I'm holding this up. Of course, it's backwards for you all to see, but Shouting in the Fire, an American Epistle. And this is Dante's debut work. Although I want to say this, I was introduced to Dante's work during the season of Advent one year, when I was looking for something meaty. The season of Advent happens at the end of the year, and we're playing around with darkness. And I was looking for a meditation, a meaty meditation. And I found Dante's work, Prophesy, and have been following him. And so when Shouting in the Fire, when I saw that advertisement that, do your pre-order, I said, absolutely. So how are you today?
I'm well. In this present moment, I am doing very good. I have my tea. I got my candle. It's actually my wife's candle, which I don't like the scent. I'm more of a woody scent with vanilla. So give me some wood and vanilla. But this hers and it smells okay. I'm well. I've had a really great day today. The weather was good. I just put my kids down not too long ago. My son's like running around. Hopefully he don't come like jump in this video. He shouldn't. So he usually obey when I say, hey, I'm doing something good. So
we'll welcome him if he does.
But I'm well. How you doing? How you feeling?
I'm good. I am good. And like you said, even before we got on tonight, I've been looking forward to this night too, and the opportunity to be with these folks. So here's a question. All throughout Shouting in the Fire, I get the sense that you are on a journey of sorts. But one aspect of that journey is finding your own voice, of getting some comfort in your own voice. And I got excited about that when I read, because I do think that authentic voice is so important to our ability to honor our own pains, our own struggles, to be in touch with what we're actually experiencing in the sort of the legacy, I guess, of what it has meant to be Black American, the struggle to stay in our bodies and to hold our own voice. And I get this sense in this piece that you are on your own journey to find your voice. And you mentioned something to me last night that I want to ask again. You used a term called close reading, right? What is that? And what has that meant to you in your own understanding of who you are and in your own holding of your own voice?
Thank you. That's a beautiful, beautiful question. Well, my relationship with close reading, as I shared with you, began in the spring of 2021. 2020 had happened. I had become a student at Emory. I had already finished the first draft of Shot in the Fire by December. And then it took some months, and then we kind of got into revision. Well, being at Emory University at the Divinity School, one of the things that you can do is take classes at the university. And so I had never, ever took a Black Studies class, never, ever took an English class. I mean, like I took English in undergrad and things like that, but not in like graduate work. And one of the things that when I transitioned from, the evangelical seminary to a seminary, I felt did a better job at accepting and embracing questioning and wondering and imagination, which I found at Emory. One of the things I wanted to do, especially when I learned that, was to take like Black Studies. And so I was like, any class on like Black Lit I can take, I really want to take it, because my life has been woven and fashioned and protected by Black literature, whether it was as a young kid seeing like Jubilee, Margaret Walker's Jubilee on the nightstand, or seeing Alice Walker's The Color Purple on the nightstand, or like any type of literature. My mom, she's a deep collector of books and things like that, and she believes deeply in like reading. And so like I ended up getting in the class African American literature from 1900 to present, taught by Dr. Michelle Wright. Here I am, a theology student in Dr. Wright's class, in this English class. I don't know what I'm doing in here. I was like, I really want to learn, Black literature and Black life and things like that. Only problem is I'm a theology student in the English department in graduate work. Those two things do not translate to one another. As a theology student, I was taught to read life and the world top down. As an English graduate student, I had to read the world from the bottom up. So it always started with what does the text say? What does the text say? Not what you bring to the text. So then Dr. Wright really worked with me on close reading, because I had to do write-ups for class and was terrible at close reading until she kept just like spending time with me on it. And one of the things that like I loved about learning close reading, where it plays in my story, is that Dr. Wright showed me that close reading was less about, what you have learned before this moment and what you bring to the table, and more about trusting the intuition when you read a text and you encounter it. And one of the things that like I've learned, especially having children now, is that like young people, the younger we are, the harder it is to trust what we actually see and what we know. The older we get, the more we just accept that we live in a world that disrupts and erases what we feel and what we think and what we know. And so when I learned how to close read, it also gave me something I felt like was robbed of me at every moment of my life all the way to this moment. And that was my audacity, my intuition, and my self-trust. And I learned that like, yo, audacity is being able to realize that like wherever I am in the world, I belong there. Intuition is trusting that wherever I am in the world, I trust that I'm in the right place and I trust the timing of my life. And my self-trust is that I believe that what I notice is true. And so close reading, as I did this, like learn the skill of close reading, it completely shifted how I saw my own self. Rather than looking at myself through the eyes of others, I began to trust that whatever I feel was true and enough for me. And I had better deal with that and learn it and spend time with it if I wanted to experience the liberation that we all seek.
So you have to be present.
Oh yeah.
Then you have to really be present in the experience of reading.
Indeed.
And of listening and of being.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, indeed. And I think that's one of the things, especially when we're talking about grief, like and spirituality. I feel like that is one of the things that really hinder our healing, is that like we believe that healing exists everywhere but inside of us. I was actually having a conversation with my therapist, and like I've been really talking about my therapy journey lately a lot, just because like it has really been unraveling a lot in my life. I was talking to my therapist, and my therapist, as we started going through, my life and started talking about certain things, I started telling my therapist just about certain things I've experienced in life and how like my memory is not that good. Like I don't remember a lot. There are things that happen in my life that I just, like it's almost like, as I described to them, like looking at a movie from the outside in. You could tell the characters, you feel them, you know where it's going, but you can't really make out what is happening. You can feel it, but you can't see it. And one of the things my therapist told me was like, yo, you have been forced to live life on autopilot. And because you've been forced to live life on autopilot, what you must give yourself back is the ability to feel again. So what they suggested was this, which I actually do all the time. This actually would have been my time of doing this. I go outside, I get on the back of my Toyota Tacoma, I let down the gate. And if it's a clear night outside, I literally just like play the same song over and over again. And I look up at the stars and I listen to the cicadas. Because my therapist is like, yo, you don't have to like train your mind. You don't have to work your mind. You have to heal your mind. And I feel like in order for us to heal, we must be given the power to see what we notice about our grief.
Yes.
To see what has happened and to name what has happened and to be given the power to tell the story however we remember.
Oh yeah. Yeah. I know for me, the coming to the point where I acknowledged that I was carrying grief and that it was so heavy. It was so heavy and almost embarrassed to even talk about it because I had been carrying it for so long. Subverting the world order, turning the world upside down, doing all of the things, that I have done, and doing it through profound grief. And I said to my therapist one January, he said, what do you want to do this year? I said, I want to feel. I said, oh, we got some different work to do. I want to feel. And what that meant was I had to slow down. No more autopilot. No more superwoman. And I had to feel in that year and to acknowledge what I was feeling. And I was journaling and writing and it was amazing. But that year I had to have surgery. I had major surgery. And when the surgery was over, maybe a week later, I said to my husband, I did not realize how much pain I was in until I was no longer in pain, because I had been on autopilot. It's the adrenaline in the body, and not paying attention to how broken my heart was over loss, and how broken my heart was over this world. Yeah. Yeah. Paying attention and staying in this body. I think that everybody here tonight, like there are a lot of things that we have in common tonight, that there are people in the room with us who have experienced adversity, are experiencing adversity right now, like whether it is the personal loss, family members, losing family members, whether it is struggling with the grief of this perpetual systemic racism, the systemic inequity and oppression, and trying to breathe under that system. And these shootings that they just keep coming. And we and things that, you know, beyond even what I've named, you know, that there are people in this room tonight who share that with us in common. And we're here because of that. We stay because I think we also, in the building of relationship with each other, get some joy, get to share the joy. But I'm almost afraid to pose this question because culturally, societally, we dismiss people's grief and pain, the realness of their grief and pain, with things like, what doesn't kill you makes you stronger, which sounds really good. It's a nice bumper sticker, but it says nothing to people who are screaming into the void over real pain. And I get why people say that. Sometimes they're trying to be helpful. But is it possible? Do you think it's possible for this difficult stuff, the stuff that we bring into this room that we're carrying right now, like how can that contribute to the deepening of our spirituality? How can we not throw it away and use it?
I can only speak to what I think I can only speak to what I've experienced. And I'll tell you a story. Between, and this kind of getting, I'm gonna read a little bit later, if we're still doing that.
We can do that.
Okay, cool. So I'll tell people. So in 2021, September 2nd, one of my best friends died in a motorcycle accident. December, my granddaddy, who has dementia, I go home and he has a jerk about him. I get him down, I rub his head. Literally like a few days later, he's in the hospital. That's one of the last time I didn't realize the last time I was going to see him was literally like, you know, wondering like, oh, like how's granddaddy doing? Like something is different. And it's almost like I was preparing for granddaddy to die. And my aunt, actually before then, my son has a seizure. My 4-year-old son has a seizure. Then my aunt, she dies unexpectedly. The day after her funeral, granddaddy dies. The day after his funeral, Aunt Jeek dies. That was all in a span from September to February. all the way going into May, where I had my first major panic attack, which could lead to 5 major panic attacks over the year. And I'm in the busiest season of my life. Like I'm going. And I don't think I understood actually what it cost me to go without grieving. So then I'm on a plane. I'm reading a book called Exhalation by Ted Chiang. And the first story in that book is The Merchant and the Alchemist's Gate, which tells the story of a young man who is before a king telling a story of his time travel. And so then as he tells him the story of his time travel, he tells him about these 2 gates called the Gate of Years. And as he tells him about the Gate of Years, he recounts the story about other people who traveled through the gate and his traveling through the gate. He meets this man named Basharat, and Basharat is also the alchemist, who's also the creator of the gate. And he tells him this one thing. He says, those who travel, you can travel 20 years into the past, 20 years into the future. But the only thing you must remember is that you can do nothing to alter either. He says the past and the future are the same. They cannot be changed. They can only be understood more fully. Well, the young man gets in his mind. He's not going to tell him why he wants to travel to the past. So he goes to the past, 20 years into the past, and the reader understands now the reason why he wants to travel 20 years into the past. 20 years into the past, there's an earthquake that happens. His wife is caught into the rubble. She dies. He travels 20 years into the past. He gets there a day late. In the past, immediately after she dies, he runs. In the new past, he enters, he's a day late and he stays. And a woman shows up. She shows up and she says, hey, who are you? And he tells her, I'm Fawad. I'm him. My wife has died. She said, oh, I was with your wife before she died. And she has a thing she wanted me to tell you. And she wanted me to tell you this. She said, you were the best thing that happened to her. In the past, he runs. He runs and he doesn't get to understand his story and the completeness of it. He runs as he's grieving. He's going. In the new past, he shows up right at the right moment and he stays, and she tells him, you were the best thing that happened to your wife. And he says this in the story. He says, now I understand what Basharat was telling me. The past and the future are the same. They cannot be changed. They can only be understood more fully. Me traveling to the past changed nothing. But what I learned changed everything. So for me, the only way that I hold on to my spirituality in these moments is if I allow it to alter my relationship to time. For human beings, this is what I've learned, is that for human beings, we are not necessarily afraid of the unknown or afraid of dying. We are afraid of our relationship to time. Death separates, it unravels time. When we experience grief and anguish and trauma, it put times in a warp, and now time feels like it's slipping away. We don't know how long this is going to last, But if indeed we can alter our relationship to time, then our spirituality can give us what we actually long for, the ability to tell what happened the way we remember it. Is what happened when Granddaddy died. This is what I remember about this person who is not here anymore. This is what I hold on to. This is what I know about myself. This is what I want for all of us. And it's in that knowledge that I think our spirituality exists. Palm Sunday happens. Jesus enters the town. Hosanna, Hosanna, Hosanna. Blessed be the name of the Lord, who comes in victory, who comes on a colt, who comes on a donkey. He sends 2 people into the town to say, hey, say the Lord sends of them. Well, the day before, there's 2 people that Jesus meet, 2 men who are blind. And the question Jesus asked him is this: what do you want me to do for you?
Mm-hmm.
That is spiritual for me.
Mm-hmm.
Understand all we have experienced and still name what it is we actually want, and do whatever we must together to bring it to pass.
I gotta take a deep breath on that. Yeah, take a deep breath on that. I'm thinking about all of the times that I've asked someone what's wrong instead of what happened. And that maybe the practice of asking, of creating space for people to talk about what happened, that might be how we can deal with our grief. Make expansive space for people to deal with, to share grief. Yeah.
Indeed. I was actually listening this morning for my writing practice. It was take a John Prine song and write about it for 15 minutes. I don't know who the world John Prine is. I don't. So if anybody know who that brother is, they can help me out. I don't know him from Adam and Eve. I don't know that brother. I don't know who he is. But there is a song that I learned today. It was called Hello in There, Hello. Written in 1971, Brother John Prine starts the song off talking about he and his wife and their children who have gone out and developed a life on their own. He tells of how a friend has died in the Korean War. He tells of how he and Rudy has not spoken and he wants to talk to Rudy. And then once he talked to Rudy and Rudy asks, hey, how's everything going? What's new? Nothing's new. Nothing. Then he tells the story of how we get old and if you see these ancient eyes and you pass the ancient eyes, don't pass them as if you don't care, but ask them the question, hello, hello. And I think that is what we're longing for. We're to ask somebody what happened is to say, like, it's to do what John Prine is trying to gesture toward, is to say, I notice you in every way that this world tries to erase you. Hello, in there, hello. There's something, I see everything out here. He don't say hello out here. He don't say hello around here. He says hello in there, hello, which means that one only says hello if you believe that you will receive an answer. And so if I say hello, then I believe that I will be greeted. And wherever the conversation goes, I'm willing to go wherever that conversation goes. But we as people have to be willing to tell one another, hello in there, hello. Do you remember? Like, what happened? Do you remember who you were? Do you remember what you still possess? Do you remember what you still have? Hello in there, hello. It's like echo into a cave. It's like, hello, hello. Can you hear me? Do you remember? Hello. And it's almost as if almost like in the beginning, God created the heavens and the earth. It's almost like calling out a thing that is only in the imagination or only in the memory, and bringing it back to the body, and it back to the mind. And that doesn't suggest that all things should be remembered or all things should be held. But the things that should be held and the things that should be remembered are the things that remind us how lovely we actually are. Like to say the name Ahmaud Arbery, Tatiana Jefferson, Makia Bryant, Sandra Bland, Trayvon Martin is the very embodiment of a hello who refuses to forget people. So maybe we should say hello in there, hello more. That is spiritual. That is doing the very thing that our spiritual teachers, no matter what tradition we are, every spiritual teacher is embodying a hello that greets other people and want to create a free, loving, affirming space for everybody.
What I appreciate about your bringing this, even sharing this with us, and Andy has promised that we're all going to get a copy of that recording. We're all going to get that recording. But what I appreciate about it is that, I mean, these are ways that we can show up for each other and show up with each other in our collective healing, creating that kind of space. I want to do something. I want to ask you to read. You shared something that hasn't been published yet, and I want you to read that because I want to talk about the relationship between a broken heart and grief.
Indeed, indeed, I will. I got you. I will. So for me, back what I say about music, y'all, I am a music reader. So I had to turn on my particular song. If you're wondering what song I listen to when I read and write, it's by the German composer Max Richter. It's called Portraits, or another version is The Exhibition. It's based on, he composed it for a German movie, Never Look Away, which is the story of a young boy who's trying to find home again. I wrote Shouting in the Fire to this song. I recorded the whole audiobook to the song. Whenever I write, the song goes on repeat and loop. So I don't know if you hear it. I hope you can't hear it, but I can hear it. And I'm going to read. In this moment, I do want us to pause though real quick. And maybe take 2 deep breaths. And I just want to affirm one thing for us after the second breath. So if you want to like turn your screen off real quick, or if you want to join me in that, I do want to like, yeah, because this is a heavy reading. Okay, so I invite you to take 1 deep breath. I invite you to take 1 more deep breath. And I invite you to tell yourself in whatever way, I am safe. I am safe. Even his griefs are a joy long after to the one that remembers all that he wrought and endured. Homer, The Odyssey. A broken heart feels everything twice. Once when it is broken, then second, when it tries to put itself back together. The mornings have gone the same. It is 4:45. I scramble out of bed, rub my eyes 2 or 3 times before walking toward the bathroom. My son is in his room. I am listening to the drumming sound that I fell asleep to. It is the drumming sound of cicadas in the South and German composer Max Richter's To the Stars. I wandered into his room. His right leg hangs off the bed. His arms are curled up toward his chest. And I say to myself, how in the world does this kid go from the bed to the floor to the bed again in just 2 hours? I guess is that is the big part of this part of the big bad 4-year-old life. Thomas the Train tracks, Paw Patrol episodes, asking to go to New York, smiling, scrubbing the knee until the blood shows, and then when the day is done, collapsing into the Paw Patrol themed bed. I grabbed the book on my nightstand, The Yellow House by Sarah Broom, that is. The last page I read the night before, X, 1999, Zora Neale Hurston said, there are years that ask question and years that answer. 99 did both, Broom writes. If 1999 was the year that threw Sarah Broom into an emotional cyclone, then 2002 was the year that threw me into an emotional dystopia. The year that makes up the 9th month of 2021 to the 9th month of 2022, 365 days of unraveling. It's kind of like watching a movie from the outside in, I told my therapist as I sat on the other side on the screen. It was our first meeting. It was night. The stars showed themselves through the window of my son's playroom. On the other side of the screen, the therapist said as I heard my children playing with my wife downstairs, he listened, wrote some notes, looked up again, wrote some notes again. I looked down at my Garmin watch. My heart rate reads 58, 62, 65, 73. I had never been to therapy before that year. Was I afraid? Was I alone? Was I wondering? I believe it was everything. My broken heart became a director unto itself, choosing which parts of the story were left, which were taken away, which were recreated, which characters replaced when and where and how. What a strange thing it is to be alive and misremembered. It's kind of like that's me, but not me at all, I said. Say more, they said, bending their head to the side, writing again. I guess to be young and gifted and Black is to be haunted by time, I say, laughing, putting both my hands together, moving them back and forth just before making a spitting gesture and the hole created in them. I don't think I'm afraid of death as much as I'm afraid of time. I look down at my Garmin watch. My heart rate reads 105, 115, 125, 129. It began with a sound, dun 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 dun, dun 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 dun. The high-pitched ring echoes from my nightstand to the chest. September 2nd, 2021. I'm laying in my bed as my wife sleeps next to me. Sad news, son, my mother texts me. But I called him Pastor. But David Patton was killed tonight in a motorcycle accident. I rub my eyes, read the text again, and realize it is actually her because of all the broken English and the typos. She put the number 2 instead of TWO. I found myself in the next moment on my carpet floor, feeling as if every ounce of water in my body emptied itself through my eyes. My friend, my brother, dead. Instantly, my mind goes back to 2007, flying from South Carolina to New Orleans, hearing him say chief, chief to Drew Brees in a loud pitched voice, then to Columbia, South Carolina, drinking the cold water on a hot day long after training was done, then singing quartet songs in his blue Volkswagen, and then walking out of his house some years ago after an argument, telling him how much I hated what we had become. I could still taste the spit, could still smell the burning oil in the garage, could still sense the volcanic distance that would ensue each step I took. That was the last memory. Regret swallowed me whole. 2 months after that, I am rubbing the head of a man who lost time. He has a jerk about him that mimics the sort of quickening of the spirit that comes when the service back home is high, it is fast, it conjures. Won't you just try and get him down to eat, my aunt says. I walk over to him, grab his bony sides as he looks at me. I rub his head again. He finally sits down on a small plate, which looks to be about the same amount of food as my 2-year-old daughter would eat as before him. Grandma walks over and begins to feed him. 3 weeks later, the phone rings. Dun, da, 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 dun, da, da, da. He's breathing so fast. My mother says, there's a sort of tremble in her voice. The next morning, he's dead. I look down at my palms, turn them toward the heavens, and remember the roughness of the head that touched him. He was a good man. He always had something to give us, I say to my therapist as we begin to talk about Granddaddy. I'm going to miss him, I say. He would always be dancing, I said, showing him the video my brother posted. It was back during the days after Granddaddy's death, him dancing to his favorite song, B.B. King, The Thrill Is Gone, Goddamn Granddaddy. The caption reads, my brother's familiar Southern lingo, and then laugh emoji, laugh emoji, laugh emoji, and then teary-eye emoji, teary-eye emoji, teary-eye emoji, heartbreak emoji. A febrile seizure is described as a child having shakes all over and losing consciousness. It is said, doctors suggest that the child's seizures could last a few seconds, maybe more, maybe 15 seconds, 15 minutes, maybe more than that. A seizure is almost as if time stands still and doesn't move. I don't know how long my sons lasted, but I know when it came, time for me stood still. What do you remember? My therapist asked again. What do you remember? I look down at my Garmin watch. My heart rate reads 115, 123, 125, 133. This is what I remember. I hear a thundering coming from the couch. My daughter is eating. My son's arm are locked to his body. My wife sleeps upstairs. I grab him with one arm. I leap from the bottom to the top. Jazz, Jazz, call 911, call 911. She cries. I cry. He lays on the floor. He stops. Nothing, nothing. He jerks. He stops. Nothing. He jerks again. He stops. The ambulance arrives. He sleeps. He wakes. He smiles. The rest, a blur. That's all I remember. I say to him, the therapist that is, that's all I choose to remember. In the months since those three events have happened, I've been more busy and exhausted than I've ever been. Since then, I have been diagnosed with major depressive disorder, generalized anxiety disorder, and PTSD. Since then, I have been on a search for a deeper kind of healing that feels like looking in the mirror and actually remember the life that you have lived and loving the thing that you see. Since then, I've seen countless people be murdered. Since then, I've cried more tears, wrote more words, drove more miles, and listened to the same song more than I care to admit. The question I can't get out of my mind is this: what can a broken heart do? When heartbreak comes, it spreads to the extremities like an unforgettable plague. It forces the broken heart into isolation. It warps their relationship to themselves and to time. In moments of terror and trauma, in moments where the mind is sometimes rocked that with the reality that control is fiction, it's very easy to be overcome. There's a choice to be made, I guess. Do you let your heartbreak destroy you? Or by some miracle of divine and human strength, let the heartbreak bring you into a deeper experience with the world and a deeper wisdom with yourself? There is a heartbreak that is associated with death, the loss of love, the empty shell of what once was felt and heard and now silent. And then there's the heartbreak that is associated with life, what we used to be, what we want, what we know, what we are not, what we are afraid of, confused by, angry at, can't be protected from, what we can't remember. Heartbreak is transferred and travels through time, forcing itself upon the old and the young alike. Heartbreak, I learned, it turns out, is a thing more than romantic rejection. It is the feeling that time has forever gone bad and will forever go bad. Life changes in an instant, Joanne Didion writes, the ordinary instant. If Pop was here, Jasmine Ward writes, he wouldn't call him no boy or no rascal. Wouldn't call him scallywag neither. And he definitely wouldn't call him boy. He'd call him badass because he is. No one knows whether we will actually accomplish what we desire. No one knows whether we will live to say 40 or 42 or 93 or 7 or 4. No one knows what awaits us in the next life. No matter how much we wished for the departed to reach back to this life, reach their fingertips back through dimensions and let their hands bear witness to the next world they have touched. But I know this, that if you have been loved and if you have lived long enough to accept that you are indeed a badass, then you will find the meaning of your life and you will find your joy. What do you want from this? My therapist asks. I look at the clock. We were already talking for 2 hours, the last session of the day, more than the 45 minutes allotted. What do you want, Dante? I want to feel, I say. I want to be out of the cave, I say. I want to feel alive, I say. I want to remember, I say. I look down at my Garmin watch. My heart rate reads 107, 98, 85, 81, 76, 70, 64, 58. No one fears death, truly. What we fear most is what we can't remember. No one fears the unknown, truly. What we fear most is for the broken heart to stop beating. If you feel moving inside, do know there is still time to love what you still have.
Dante.
Yeah. Ooh.
That took a lot out of you.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Mm.
What I've heard is that a broken heart and grief, it could lead us into a deeper relationship with the world, with ourselves, with love, with each other. It could.
Mhm.
Maybe even so, if we ask the question, what do you want? What do you want?
Exactly. What do you want?
What do you want?
That's the thing, is that like heartbreak doesn't always make us better.
Hmm.
And that's the danger, is that like there is heartbreak that is unjust
Mhm.
grief being forced upon other people.
Mhm.
White supremacy, patriarchy, homophobia, transphobia, war, murder, violence, injustice. All of these are constellations of unjust grief,
Hmm.
in which someone's brokenheartedness turns them into a monster. And that only happens when you only see your heartbreak through your own eyes. James Baldwin writes that you think you are alone until you read books and you realize that you are not alone. You realize that like these hearts have been broken before, but also these hearts have been put back together.
Hmm.
And, you know, today, as I was writing, and actually, y'all, this next book tentatively is entitled What a Broken Heart Can Do. I was like, you know what? Like, I asked myself for the first time ever of any of my writing, I said, what is the promise of this work? And it just hit me that like the promise of what I'm doing, what I'm trying to do as a human, as a writer, as a minister, is that at every iteration of every line of every section, one would encounter their own heartbreak and not let it destroy them.
Mm.
but they would learn what a broken heart can do. And they will learn and look at themselves and be proud of what their broken heart has done.
Mhm.
That is it. That is the full and final affirmation. That is the greatest affirmation we all want, whether we are time travelers in a sci-fi novel, or whether we are superheroes trying to defeat the people, whether we are young athletes trying to play in college, whether we're young people trying to learn an instrument, whether we're people trying to go on a business venture, whether we're people trying to accomplish this thing or that. What we actually want is the affirmation that who you are is enough. And what you possess is actually powerful.
Mm.
That's what we want.
Mm.
That's what it can do for us.
Mm.
I'm just going to chime in here because we're getting to a point where this, I mean, this conversation is so amazing that, you know, we typically wrap up these conversations about 15 minutes prior, but holding space for what's happening right now on the screen feels so poignant and so, I don't know what the word is, so perfectly serendipitous to why we're here. And I was going to ask each of you to share, you know, in one sense, what is spiritual growth to you? But I feel like we're experiencing it just by being in the presence
Right now.
of the conversation. And I feel
Right
like, you know,
now.
when we talked about being you know, reading a book and being with others and other stories and just being in that presence, it's like you both are putting us in that space right now. And I feel like that's what it is. I don't know. I mean, there's not there, it can't be contained in one sense. So I just want to say that this is, um, you know, in a Jewish tradition, which we just had Passover, we say, you know, Dayenu, which means that this would have been enough. This would have been enough. I mean, you know, that was like what we just heard, like a bunch of Dayenus. It was like this, what you just said would have been enough, but it just keeps flooding in our hearts with, um, you know, this relationship between brokenness and spirituality, and that linkage, that just happens when we're together and when we put words to these parts of our experience and put ourselves in a space to be with one another. And so just to say, Dante, thank you for sharing that reading with us. That's such a vulnerable story,
Yeah.
and the vulnerability that comes through all of your work. Um, and it's just incredible because it's so human, and that's what that's where that spirituality, I think, dwells. And then Emma, for holding this space with us and for drawing this out and for just the exquisite, kind of connection you both share that we can feel, I think, through the conversation is just been a gift. And just if you look at the chats that people are saying, um, you know, it's just, I would just encourage everyone to kind of, especially both of you, to scroll through. Kathleen said, I never thought about my having a broken heart from these past years of a pandemic, on top of just trying to live day by day. Perhaps now I can move on from all the pain and turmoil I have been feeling as I try to live my winter years. I mean, this is just coming from this conversation. So, um, thank you. And please stay with us, because now we want to, you know, honor the people that are in your hearts, as we move through the rest of this ceremony. I know, as I mentioned, my aunt Nancy Lieberman passed away today, and I don't know, just I find so much comfort in what you're sharing. I just wanted to say that, and also bring her name into the space as we, also call forth with us, Mengda Sangwan Pang. And I'm just grateful, Mengda, for you to be here to join this conversation with us. You are an artist, a contemplative care practitioner, a death doula. Uh, Mengda is the founder of Bossy and a Reimagine event host and a community collaborator. She shines just like the Laotian word that is her name, which means the light of the full moon. On April 20th, Manga will serve as facilitator for the kickoff of Reimagine's new monthly gathering, Room for Grief. We have this space here in these monthly vigils that you're a part of today, but we haven't had a space that's a regular recurring space just for people to be in their grief in a full way, to support one another in conversation, in more like conversational place. And we just want to create that space. And Mengda is going to host that monthly gathering, Room for Grief, which we'll tell you about shortly. And she will also be co-hosting a grief circle in May with another Reimagine collaborator, Tony Pham, that is really by and for the Asian American and Pacific Islander community. So at Reimagine, we also try to create spaces by and for specific communities: the Black community, the Asian American Pacific Islander community, the Latinx community, the disability community, all these different communities. So sometimes these mixed spaces are great, and sometimes it's also really powerful and important to have spaces where people who have share certain commonalities can be together and have that safe space created by and for them. So thank you so much. We want to welcome you to the space here to lead us into the honor ceremony, where we're going to be sharing names in the chat, and we're going to be graced by Jonathan Lipp's music. But first, to bring us into that space, Mengda would love to invite you to share a couple words as one of our dear collaborators.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. And I'm just echoing the chat. I'm so fed and full by Emma and Dante's words. Like, I didn't even know I was so hungry. So thank you. Thank you. And just for the sake of time, I would love to just offer a ritual to everyone here in this space that just kind of perfectly mirrors a little bit of what has been discussed in this conversation. And it's called a Bossy ritual. And Bossy means blessings, and it comes from Laos. And the idea of this is what you do is you take a white string and you tie it around someone else's wrist. And this is something that we do through the totality of life experiences, whether it's weddings, a birth, or at illness and death and grief. This has served me personally throughout my entire life in all of these different parts of human experience. And so I'd love to share that with you today, if that's something you'd like to do as we're honoring our grief, our loved ones here or transitioned, or even to the world. So just very briefly, this ritual also symbolizes just true unity, compassion, connection between every being, and is ultimately a celebration of life and honoring our experiences. So I can just shortly guide you if you'd like to join me into this. So we could take a moment to close our eyes. And I just want to encourage you to have just a little ease and a little presence. And just allow yourself to be very intuitive and allow what needs to be said or what needs to come up. And I'd like you to imagine you tying a white string around whomever you'd like to give a blessing to from your heart, whether that's your grief, a loved one, or the world. And that blessing can be as simple as, may you be happy, may you be at ease, may you not suffer. And so in this moment, I invite you just to do that, to tie this white string around whomever you'd like to honor or whatever experience you'd like to honor, and whatever that blessing may be. And when you're ready, if you'd like to go into the chat and share your blessing or the name of the person, world, experience that you'd like to honor, you could do so there, or anything else you'd like to share.
And I think, Jonathan, you can grace us with your music now. It would be beautiful. Thank you, Mengda. And yes, we invite everyone to share in the chat. This is the honor ceremony now. And as Jonathan begins sharing his music with us, as you type names, just want to say that he's going to end up playing a song that's one of my favorite songs in the entire world, called The Sun Rises, after the honor ceremony. It'll go right into that. And I'm just grateful for this music to grace us with this ceremony.
My husband. From Jean Marie, the victims of the Covenant School and the Louisville Bank mass shootings. From Becky, blessings for someone beginning a renewal leave. From Stephanie, her beautiful mother. For Nisa, may you go in peace. From Carol, Brian. From Liza Jane, her friend Whitey Hitchcock. From Phoebe, a blessing for Julia Brown. From Sharon, blessing to the memory and love of my son Rodney and my dad Amos. From Norma, I would like to tie a white string around all the people of the world who cannot see that we are one. From Lori, my youngest grandchild. From Liz, beloved Ronnie. From Judy, Teresa Kidd. From Jean Marie, the spirit of her mother. From Jean, Anderson Thompson, her father. From Fran, her husband, Alan Clement Lindsay. From Keisha McKenzie, our beloved friend from Auburn Seminary, honoring Mary, Robert, Debbie, Rose, Rhonda, Rosa, David, and Bonita. From Kay Sweetness, holding Nancy's family in high vibration as they honor her life. From Sandra, for Quinn. From Priscilla, gratitude to Dante. From Jean, blessings for her mother Muriel Thompson, who is struggling with dementia. From Loie, her daddy. From Phoebe, a blessing for her elders, Cornelius Hamilton, Elizabeth Jenkins, Charlotte Jenkins, and Irene Singleton. Sarah's grandparents. From Kathleen, to my daughter Danielle, I pray that you find peace. From Phoebe, her late mother Nancy, whose birthday is today. From Brad, Nancy Lieberman, his cousin aunt. From Lois, for those who long to hear these words from others, I say, I love you. From Chuck Kaminsky, for his husband, Jeffrey. From Priscilla, for Anne, Eric, Karen, and Arlene. From Phoebe, patience and stamina for families of children with brain diseases.
And please continue to share. But now, Jonathan can lead us in his own song, The Sun Rises.
Done like shining glass, sea and sun are sharp and real, bright blades of love which grew to heal the wounds of the night is over now, the night is over. The sun is coming up. turn away from the flames. These brilliant rays annul our shame. The fire burns, but we stand, for which we earn is in our hands. The night is over now. The night is over now. The sun is coming up. Touch the earth, it sings rejoicing, for the day has dawned and we have returned to ourselves as we were meant to be, to the world as it has longed to be. The night is over now. The night is over now. The sun is coming up. I breathe at last. The work is done. The shadow passed. Life begun. The night is over now. The night is over now. The sun is coming up. The night is over now. The night is over now. The sun is coming up.
Thank you to all of you for what you shared in the chat. And thank you to Jonathan for that gorgeous song that really spoke to the heart, I think, of everything that we've been hoping for and talking about this evening, and Mangda for leading us into that beautiful ceremony. I just want to also share before we wrap up tonight a little bit about Jonathan, who wears many hats. He's a technologist, a philosopher, a linguist, and a photographer. He's also obviously a musician, and he himself is in theology school and is a theologian himself. So this experience about suffering to spirituality felt like the perfect place to invite Jonathan to perform for us. And as I didn't mention, he's also a Reimagine board member. And so thank you so much for your service to this organization, Jonathan, and all your contributing and thinking about how we move this conversation forward. He lives in Vancouver with his little boy. And Jonathan, if you want to just, if there's anything that's in your heart, I just want to give you a space to share a word or two if there's something that's coming up for you.
Take off the reverb there so I don't sound like I'm in a castle. Although I did write that song in a castle. It's a long story. I think all I want to say is just I was so blessed to listen to the conversation earlier, and just, I mean, I guess maybe it's how each of our brains work. Just little details that stood out to me from what Dante was saying that really like I connected with, even though it may not have been the main point. Just like talking about Paw Patrol merchandise and My babysitter fell through tonight, so Paw Patrol is babysitting my 5-year-old at the moment. I didn't realize this was gonna be an hour and a half, so got a little extra screen time today. Or like, the Garmin watch thing, mine was telling me your heart rate's elevated, because obviously, performance and nerves and stuff like that. But just what a blessing it was. I mean, like Brad said, I am a sort of part-time theology student, and I just feel like what a great model for what theology is and can be, and not just kind of these abstract conversations about God, but digging into the rich depths of humanity and human relationships. And I'm going to go to our next theology pub night whenever that happens and talk about God says you're a badass theology. I think that's going to be my icebreaker next time. So thank you, Dante and Emma, for that conversation.
Thank you, Jonathan. Thank you so much for that reflection and for that gorgeous song. And we'll send out a link to this recording and also links to the people who presented tonight if you want to follow Jonathan's music or follow up with Dante's book. Obviously, there's a lot to follow up on here, and I think we're all going to do it. So now want to just hold some space for us to wind down. And if you don't mind, we wanted to end this in 2 minutes. It's probably going to go about 5 minutes extra, but I want to just have a proper closing. That's really important to close these rituals. If you have to go, I understand, but endings are obviously a big part of this conversation, and we want to hold a sacred space for that to happen with the space it deserves. So with that, I want to bring back Mengda, Emma, and Dante to share this candle extinguishing prayer with each of us, which you can also read aloud wherever you are. And even if you don't have a candle or don't want to extinguish your candle, because some people want to maybe keep your candle lit, maybe it's something you want to hold on to, and that's beautiful too. But if you want to read along with us, feel free. And then we'll at the end of these 3 verses, we'll then I'll count to 3, and we can all simultaneously extinguish these candles if you feel inclined. So, Mengda, take it away.
By extinguishing our candles, we release light into our world to keep alive the memories of those we honor, today and tomorrow and for the rest of our lives.
By extinguishing our candles, we release light into our world to keep alive the memories of those we honor today and tomorrow and for the rest of our lives.
By extinguishing our candles, we release light into our world to keep alive the memories of those we honor today and tomorrow and for the rest of our lives.
3, 2, 1. So with that, I wanted to have Andy come back and share a little bit about what's coming up through this program we're offering, From Suffering to Spiritual Growth, where tonight we really kick this off in such deep, profound, and loving fashion. This was just quite an exquisite night. So Andy, thank you so much for bringing. Also, Andy is the Reimagine event producer who was responsible for putting this program together. And just to say, Andy, you did one heck of a job.
Thank you. I would just want to say this was so perfect to have Emma, Dante, and Magda kick this series off. You're really setting the right tone for us. We've got a wonderful lineup this month of all kinds of speakers to help us navigate this path from suffering into spiritual growth. We'll explore how the hard things in life can lead to a deepening of our spiritual selves. And like Brad said earlier, this is for people of all faiths, of no faith, everyone in between. So next Wednesday, we'll be experiencing stories of chaplains, clergy, movement leaders who navigate their own loss and spiritual crises as they care for others. Those speakers include Sensei Chodo Robert Campbell, Caitlin Breedlove, Mati Engel and Reverend Jen Bailey of Faith Matters Network will moderate. And I want to give a special shout out to Sharon Groves at Auburn, who made that connection to Jen Bailey. So thank you. For our final session, a Buddhist monk, a pastor, and a rabbi will guide us in taking steps towards spiritual growth. It sounds like a joke, but it's not. Our guests will include Soren Glassing, Corey Kennard, who's another wonderful Reimagine board member, or actually our interim board chair now, and Rabbi Sydney Mintz, a longtime Reimagine friend. Learn more about these events, and please register. We want to see your faces again. The link will be in the chat. And I want to also tell you about another event that's coming up, organized by our dear colleague, Misha Jain. That's tomorrow. In honor of Sexual Assault Awareness Month, join Reimagine for a virtual screening of this award-winning short film, Touched. It will be followed by a powerful panel discussion. And I hope you can join us for that. And then again, Room for Grief, our new gathering that's taking place monthly, every third Thursday of the month. The Reimagine community will hold space for those mourning loss. And Magda, thank you again. You'll be kicking off as facilitator for this session, and we hope to see you there. And finally, our next vigil is on May 3rd. We'll be featuring poet Nicole Brown.
Sure as hell.
And yeah, we hope to see you there as well.
And, you know, I like to close these with a little poem, Dante, to pale in comparison to what you shared with us. But I did write you 5 lines of poetry that were inspired by what you were sharing with Emma together in bowls each. It always seems to work out well, this little stuff, this format, but this is what came up for me when we're thinking about spiritual growth. So spiritual, I don't know if that's 3 syllables, by the way. Spiritual is 3 syllables or 4, but I'm counting it as 3. Spiritual openings in the stars, in your hearts, and now in ours. So that's how I feel as we were on a journey with you, and you brought spirituality, you know, down from the heavens into this realm that we could really access. And so thank you for that. And to all of the Reimagine staff who made this possible, and all of you who showed up today to be a part of this. Every month, sad but glad, to mourn, grieve, grow, and love together. So, you know, I'm just gonna turn off my screen here and just say what a treat this was. You know, Reimagine is a totally human-powered organization, and maybe also powered by the cosmos, but it has been taking your financial contributions to make it possible. So if you're willing and able to make a financial contribution to Reimagine to help us produce these free experiences year-round, over 600 events year-round for people now. And also we're building for growth, and spirituality being one of the pathways that we want to really hold sacred for ourselves, as a way that we might, in the way that Dante was talking about, be with our grief, not in a way of toxic positivity, but in a way of like, how do we think about the intersection of our life and spirituality? What's possible for us? And with all the pain in the world that's being, the grief that we're experiencing that's being put on us, you know, what do we do? What do we do? There's no answer necessarily for that question, but we're trying to create a space for us to ponder that together and figure out pathways that are united by something more deeply powerful that connects us in trying to find answers for ourselves. So, you know, if you go to letsreimagine.org and share with us any financial contribution, or if you want to host an experience like this for your own community, we have tools and resources to help you create an experience for your friends, for your family, for your community. If you want your own spiritual community to host an event like this, reach out to us and we can help set you up to with some materials and things to help you hold conversations on the intersection between loss, mortality, adversity, and all the things that are related to that subject, especially community. And so finally, you know, I think as we're out of time, just to say thank you again. you know, Dante and Emma, if you want to say and you want to share with the space, or any last word you want in on.
Just blessings to you all.
Indeed, and thank you just for showing up and being here. Thank you.
And so thank you so much. We always close with one word. We usually just close with everyone saying love at the same time, but I think tonight, why don't we all just say hello? That seems like the right word for us all to say together. So we'll unmute ourselves and we'll all sing out the word hello at the count of 3. And I know that most things on Zoom sound bad, but I'm in a moment, this will sound quite delightful. So on the count of 3, 3, 2, 1.
Hello.
All right, everyone. Have a great
Good
evening.
night. Good night.
Good night.
Good night.
Good night, everyone. Wonderful.
Love you all. Good night.
Yes, love
Thank
back at
y'all.
you.
Thank you.